How you doing anyway? Good?
I'm okay, and you're okay. Thank you for doing this. Thank you for agreeing to do this.
That's all right. It's all right. It's all right. It's nice to catch up and do stuff with you. And you're right. Like I was just saying to my family, like if one person hears it and it makes a difference, it's worth it, isn't it?
I'm a little bit frightened, but I am. I don't know
Okay.
why. It's just, I think as well, like when I first went into refuge, and even before then, it was like everything was hidden.
Yeah.
It was all a secret. And then even years afterwards, it's only been recently I've been telling people whereabouts I live and stuff because I was even concerned about that.
Yeah. 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 And it's weird. There shouldn't be, but there is still this measure of shame attached to it, isn't there? Which is stupid, but it does happen.
Yeah.
Because we still get asked the questions, why didn't you leave? Oh, I wouldn't stay and put up with that. So it's all put on the victim to leave and to make themselves safe, and yeah, perpetrators stay invisible.
And the assumptions as well, like you're some sort of weak woman, and you're very feeble, and it's
Yeah,
like,
and
yeah,
you must have done something, surely.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm me. I'm Jo, as you know. I'm Jo Majauskis, and I've worked in domestic violence for just over 20 years now. I currently do a lot of training and I'm a domestic homicide chair, but I spent a long time working as a frontline worker and quite a few years running recovery type groups for people who experience domestic abuse, which is obviously where we went quite a long time ago.
It was quite a long time ago. Yeah, I met you when I was living in refuge, wasn't I?
Yeah,
You ran the coffee mornings.
that's right. Yeah, coffee mornings and then like some recovery type programs for people who've experienced abuse, who were both in our refuges and in the community as well.
And that was I
And
can't
quite big groups, I remember. There was a lot of people in our group.
there was a lot of people in our group, and what was good about the group I was in at the time is people who had, even if you'd experienced domestic abuse, 10 years before, you could still turn up every now and again and have that ongoing support, which is we don't seem to have that now, which is really.
Yeah, it's a real shame. I think there's a lot of pressure on the sector. We've lost a lot of money and funding, and we know recovery doesn't happen overnight. Even when you leave, actually, the abuse often continues, and people do need that longer term support sometimes, don't they?
Yeah,
It can definitely take a long time to to come to terms with everything and to move on from it.
it does. And we were talking the other day about our background as well, and that's not considered. It's like years after the initial like abusive situation that you realise where it stems from and why you were more susceptible susceptible to the abuse that you were originally supported for and helped through.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think anyone can become a victim of abuse. I think people who are abusive can take anyone, no matter what place you're in, and they can chip away at your self esteem and your self worth, and they can, find a way to control you. But actually, if you've had difficult childhood, if you've had, other traumas, it can definitely make you more vulnerable, and they will target that. They will target people that they think are vulnerable in some way. And a lot of the time, it's to do with like wanting to have that attachment to somebody, and they will definitely pick up on that, and they'll promise the world, as you know, they'll promise, and they'll say things like we're soulmates and we're meant to be together. And that love bombing thing, I think, is that happens in most or in a lot of abusive relationships. You're particularly vulnerable to it if you've not had maybe that secure attachment, or that unconditional love in your life before. Do you want to talk about how you ended up in refuge?
Yes, it was a very very long time coming, and looking back, I should have gone a long long time before I went, if that makes
Yeah.
sense. But I think in my mind I'd built up this picture of refuge. I've got to say it was not an easy experience, and some of the people I was in refuge with it was a very different mix of people, and I found that I had to be quite tough. But even so, I should have gone in a lot sooner. And again, like, one of the reasons is I'd built up this picture in my mind, and also it was almost like I was putting off the inevitable as well. I didn't want to face up to what was going on, and then I'd be like, well, there's no blood up the walls, so am I really being abused? I'd be constantly questioning myself.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, and the gaslighting that happens as well. I think for me, one of the more insidious things about coercive control is how they make you feel responsible. And in the beginning, what happens when the abuse happens is, because you don't want to believe it's abuse, because you love this person, you adapt your behaviour to accommodate their abusive behaviour. And when we do that, we start taking responsibility for what's happening. And so when it comes time to leave, we almost feel like we're somehow responsible and we can somehow fix it. And if we just try hard enough, we can get back to how things were. And you spend, I think, most of the time in that cycle of trying to get back to the good times, which don't happen, do they?
no, because that was fictitious, wasn't it? I mean, he would do stuff like would threaten to kill himself. And I would get really worried, and I'd contact his parents. I'd be like, he's threatening to kill himself. They'd be like, oh, well, you must go back to him. Use the cats as leverage, because we had 2 cats. It was a really weird. It's just so weird. That wouldn't happen with a healthier person. Say if I broke up with, a person I was in a healthy relationship with tomorrow, there might be a couple of, upset texts or a couple of sad phone calls, but you wouldn't have anybody like he would do stuff like break into my house. The first time he did it, and this was like after the police had escorted him off the premises, he broke into my house and tidied up everything. And because I came home and I was like, what the fuck has gone on?
Yeah. And in his head, probably like a normal thing, and maybe like, oh, I'll show her that I can be helpful around the house or something, but missing out the whole how creepy it is that he broke into your house. But it's when people talk about them being like Jekyll and Hyde, they're normally not. What they do is they're sifting through the tactics to see what's going to work in terms of controlling you. So I've seen all sorts of things happen. And when people when you leave, when people used to come into refuge, I'd kind of say, okay, this is what your next 12 hours might look like. You're going to get loads of texts or loads of missed phone calls, and some of them might be promising to change, promising things are going to get better, promising, that they're going to get help. If that doesn't work, then you might get threats. So that might be threats against your pets or threats to hurt themselves, or, and the last one is normally that they'll threaten to kill themselves. It's really common. I've seen it and heard it hundreds of times, for the years I've been working in this field. And it's normally the one that gets you to go back because they make you feel responsible for their well-being. And all they are doing is just trying out different things to see what's going to work. That's the Jekyll and Hyde. It's just, that didn't work. And I used to say this to people when I used to come in the refuge, and then I'd come back the next morning, they'd look at me like I was Mystic Meg. How did you know that was going to happen? I'm like, because they all do pretty much the same thing.
Doing Marie, as I say, I should have got help a lot sooner. But even at that point, I didn't think it was domestic abuse. It's almost like it had to be broken down and explained to me by professional people, because I wouldn't have it. At this point, I was like, I really need you to fuck off and leave me alone. But he kept breaking into my house. He kept hanging about the bushes. He was in the bushes outside my house.
Stalking.
I would like, it got to a point where I would tell him what he wanted to hear and then go out for the night, hoping he'd get the hint that I'm not there, fuck off and leave me alone. But he would sleep on the doorstep. And the neighbours would be like, oh, he was on the sleep on the doorstep. He misses you so much. He must really love you. And it's like, and that is like, it just gave me the ick. There was times when I'd have to go in through the back door, because I lived in a flat and it was on the first floor, but we had steps upstairs to get into the back. So I would go around the back of my house to get into my flat, because I knew that I'd be asleep I'd be hanging about the because somebody'd let him into the foyer, and I'd see the light and I'd be like, he's in the foyer, so I've got to go around the back. And it just seems mad that I was doing that.
Yeah. But like I say, this is what I was saying, you adapt your behaviour to accommodate their behaviour. And people don't realise how dangerous stalking is. One of the key things with stalking is the fixated and, you know, obsessive behaviour. And it's like ownership. It's like you belong to him, so you don't get to choose. You don't get to choose that you leave him. You don't get to make that choice about ending the relationship. And they absolutely become fixated. And it sounds a bit cliche, but that is where you get the cases where it's like, well, if I can't have you, no one can. And that's where we see the homicides happen, sadly. But yeah, people don't realise. And the coercive control is so insidious as well. I saw a statistic that said something like 51% of women in coercively controlling relationships don't know that they are, because some of the behaviours are so subtle, and some of it does look like pseudo-caring behaviour. You know, he really loves you and he just wants to be there for you all the time. But when you try and start explaining it to people, it can almost sound like you're being petty, because all these things taken in isolation can be quite small. He doesn't like it and aware this, and he doesn't like that friend of mine, and, you know, this upsets him. But when you put it all together, it's literally about how all of your freedom gets taken away, all of your choices get taken away, and you're just, every aspect of your life becomes controlled. Yes. And even when you left, like you're saying, even when you've left, you're still having to do things to work around his behaviour.
And it was just, and I really couldn't understand it at the time. And somebody suggested it was stalking, and somebody suggested it was domestic abuse, and it was, at that point, I just feel like I'd isolated myself from a lot of people. Yeah.
And probably he did that as well, I'm guessing, because that's quite a common thing that they do as well. Yeah, it's about like shutting down your world and making you dependent on them by closing everybody off.
Because I remember before he moved in, and I didn't really want him to move in either. This was another weird. There's just so much to this, John. I don't think I'm the only one. It's like it took years to get to the point it got. I didn't want him to move in to my flat, and then he had a fallout with the people he was sharing with, and it was like, oh, I can't possibly go back home, and oh, I'm moving with you. And it was like, well, you can stay here temporarily. Next thing I know, he's moving every single thing in. So like my small flat became really cramped with his stuff, and he's like, you know, drilling holes in the wall, and, you know, making, you know, putting big shelves up and stuff. And I'm like, what the fucking hell is this? It was just so overwhelming. It's like I just couldn't get my whole head around the situation. And then it's almost like I forgot all about it, if that makes sense. It's like I forgot all about it. And, you know, every now and again I'm like, hang on a moment, what the fuck's this? And then it was like, oh, but I love you and everything. And I was like, okay then. I did love him, and he was sort of saying all the right things and doing the right things, and I think I knew, like, deep down something wasn't right. I think you asked me.
I think the whirlwind thing, the whirlwind at the beginning is quite a red flag, I think, as well. But that's what they do. They will push it to move in, and they'll make excuses. He probably didn't fall out with his flatmates, but he probably just told you that he did. But it's that going much faster than you mean to. And I've had people that I've worked with before who were like, when you kind of go, oh, so you're living together, they're like, no. Oh, wait, actually, yeah, maybe. Maybe we are. And it's like you don't even see it happening. So, in the beginning, you had the whirlwind. He moved in before you realised. When did you first notice that things... I mean, I guess that's when you first noticed things wasn't okay, because he was pushing that agenda anyway. But when did it start to not be okay?
You know, when I think about it, even before he moved in, it wasn't okay. We actually broke up before then, because he'd been cheating on me with somebody he worked with, although he denied it, but it was obviously hard. He had an STI and I didn't. Right. And he claimed, I'm just like, what an idiot, that he'd had chlamydia before, and that it had just come back, because that's what it does sometimes, Joe. which it doesn't, does it?
I don't know, but you believe it because you want to believe it, don't you? That's the thing. When you're in love and you've started a new relationship, you wanna believe the things that they tell you.
So
And they're very. We mustn't forget people who use coercive and child abuse are so manipulative, and they are so believable. It's their language. They lie, and they get really good at it.
yeah, I know. It's like I'm talking about it now, but it just feels like I can talk about it to you, but it just sounds like the most bizarre situation ever. It's almost
Yeah,
like it didn't happen, but it did.
yeah,
And I
yeah,
think this is why when you start talking about these things, they come along and they say, "Oh well, it's obvious she's making it up because have you heard how ridiculous it is?" But it did happen, and people did
yeah,
see some of this happen as well. And I think this is where I get disappointed in people because it's like you saw this, and I was in bands, and you probably know that I've been in bands for a very long
yeah.
time. And one particular band I was in, he insisted on having the phone number of every member of the band, just to keep me safe and make sure that I was all right, which is a load of old bollocks. Because even then, I'm thinking, no, you're not. Are you not? You're not taking care of me at all. You're keeping tabs on me. And
Yeah.
he never came to see the band. And then when he did come to see the band, he told me that I was rubbish and that the band was shit. And then he sort of walked off and abandoned me in, like, this was in Southend by Southend Seafront. And luckily I was with the guys I was in the band with. And I remember one of the band members' dads was there and he was like, I can't believe he's done that, leaving you to get home on your own. We'll give you a lift home, it's all right. And it's I just can't imagine doing that to somebody. So you're supposed to be my
The
boyfriend.
purpose of that most likely was for you not to be in the band. So he puts you down, makes you think you're rubbish, that you think, am I right doing this? Perhaps I shouldn't be doing this. And then he leaves you there because then there's the worry that it might happen again and how will I get home next time?
Yeah. And strange thing is, he got me to join his band, which I didn't really want to be a part of his band actually. I was like, okay, so I'll be in two bands. The other band split up, not because of that situation, but because,
No.
other people need to do other things, and I was left being in his band. This sounds bonkers in itself with the whole band situation. So I was in his band for a bit.
Even though you were shit.
Even though I was shit, I was rubbish,
Yeah.
I was shit, but he wanted me in his band.
Yeah.
And
Funny that.
funny, isn't it? I think the backfire was I ended up being picked up by the band that I was in for 12 years, and they saw me play with this band, and they were like, "Oh, come and join us." But what made me laugh is I joined them, and he was like, "You didn't ask me permission to be in that band." And then he was messaging two of the members of that band, really hounding them, saying,
Yeah.
calling me all sorts of names, and it was horrible.
Yeah.
They
Because
didn't listen
they
to
don't
him.
want you to have any independence or anything outside of them. It's like they're the centre of the world and everything's got to revolve around them. You're not supposed to have anything for yourself.
It's just what is the can you explain like the psychology behind the sort of personality that would do that sort of thing?
Um, yeah, I mean it's all about control, isn't it? It's all about power and control, and people. There's different types. There's different types of like perpetrator, if you like, but all of them have this control issues, and a lot of them have real narcissistic traits. Like I say, the very I am. I'm the star of this movie, and you're just all the supporting cast, really. And I always used to say it's not a relationship; it's ownership. So you're like a belonging to them, and so therefore you don't make any decisions for yourself. They decide everything, and you should just be constantly in their orbit, doing whatever they want to do and focusing your attention on them. It's why, quite often Children end up being abused because they don't want you paying attention to the children. It's why they'll cut off all your friends because they don't want you to have anyone else around. All of those types of things. So yeah, you get those behaviours, and there's different drivers, I guess, sitting underneath it. For some of them, actually, I think it is that kind of like pathological fear that you're going to leave them. Some of them, display a lot of like jealous behaviours, but not all of them. So I think it's a complex thing when you start looking at the theoretical perspectives underneath what causes it. It's kind of a bit about that person's individual psychopathy. It's a bit about their upbringing. It's about who they hang around with, and then it's about some of these wider systems like the patriarchy that tells men that they can control women. So it's not just one thing, it's all sorts of things all layered together.
It's I think as well you've got, it's that embedded thought process, isn't it? And I've found as well, I learnt a term recently. It was male-centered women, like women who'll defend men to the last. You could have a guy come in and they would maybe even beat you and even kill you, and they'd still make excuses for that man.
Yeah, there's a weird sort of phenomena with like unconscious bias. The way our brains work is they are constantly trying to predict everything that's going to happen, and they like to put things into groups, and we like to generally put ourselves with people who are like us in peers. So that's why a lot of the time you'll find women might group more with women and men more with men, but you do get women that will group with men because we also want to be part. It's like a very animalistic, instinctive thing that we want to be part of a more powerful group because that's about survival. So it comes back to like how our brains work. So there is something in there, I guess, about if you group yourself with men, then you're probably in a safer position.
Yeah, I see that actually. Even myself, where even though I've been through what I've been through, there'll be times where I'll see, I'll see, I'll see things through the eyes of the people who didn't speak up for me, and I'll be like, why didn't you say anything? You saw it. You're a woman too. And then I thought back and I thought, maybe they were just protecting themselves. It's like if you're a single mum and you've got, this guy who's potentially hurting somebody, and you see things, but you're thinking, if I put my head over the parapet, they might come for me too.
Yeah, yeah. One of the things that is very common as well in abusive relationships after you leave is that the perpetrator will recruit people. They'll recruit friends, family. I've had clients before that I've worked with where the perpetrator is sleeping on their mum's sofa. It's kind of like, because they put this like poor me syndrome thing on where, they're heartbroken, you've done terrible things to them. We also see something which we refer to as DARVO, which stands for Deny, Attack, Reverse Victim Offender, where they will make out that they're the victim and you've abused them in some way, and they will literally turn people, who you think are really close friends and maybe even family members against you as almost like a revenge because you've left.
Yeah, that was...
And also to isolate you as well.
That was done to me. It was done to me fairly recently. There'd been stuff online calling me out as an abuser. Yeah. And I read through some of it and it was a bit like, okay, I feel that I was a bit stronger in myself when I read that, because I'm like, that's not... But the amount of people was like, really slagging me off, and people who I used to like break bread with and stuff, Yeah. Which was it was disappointing and quite hurtful actually, but
it's really hurtful, and it just re-victimised, when you've already been a victim of abuse and then that happens, you get re-victimised because, like I say, I mean, you're already isolated, you need the support around you, and you have not just the perpetrator attacking you, it's like they recruit a whole bunch of bullies to kind of come after you as well, and it's terrifying, and it's really awful, and I see it happen all the time. And you just kind of, people sadly don't understand the dynamics of abuse. And like I said earlier, these perpetrators can be really, really manipulative, and they're coercing those people as well. And they're really believable. They can be very charming. They can be very believable. But like you say, when it's people that you think should know you, it can be really hurtful.
Yeah. I mean, I isolated myself for a long time. I would play gigs because I knew the band of people I was with,
Yeah,
but I would never go to gigs without on my own. Do you know what I mean? Or I'd always check who was out. I'd shut my social media off for a very long time.
yeah,
I know the police say you should do that, and I know Refuge like turn your social media off, but I think that does play into the isolation. You know, looking back
definitely.
now, I mean, I did when I went back. I had a lot of people blocked, but when you're a mum as well, and when you come out of that situation, you haven't got a lot of money, you can't go out so much, so connecting with people on social media is quite. I found that quite, you know,
It's one
quite
of your only lifelines, isn't it? And
yeah,
it does frustrate me that when people who've been victims of abuse leave, so much of the emphasis is put on them to keep themselves safe, rather than us disrupting the abusive behaviour of the perpetrator. So, you have to come into refuge, you have to shut down your social media, you can't really see people maybe that you used to see in case, he finds out where you are, and that shouldn't be happening. It shouldn't have to be like that. We've got laws in place, there are things where he shouldn't be able to do what he was doing. And it's massively problematic because it's already an isolating place to be when you've been in an abusive relationship. The perpetrator will have undoubtedly shut you off from friends and family, and then you lose what little support networks you've got left.
and they
So,
use every little thing against you, like, oh well, she's still in a band, or oh well, she had an affair whilst we were still married, and it's like, no, I broke up with you and I started seeing somebody else, so yeah, legally it is an affair, and I'll
but you were
take that.
separated.
I'll
Yeah.
take that. You want to call me, make me out to be some big adulteress. That's fine.
But we've already
But
established that he cheated on you right at the beginning of the relationship, and undoubtedly did it during the relationship as well.
he did, and I'll tell you something else that happened. Lorik, he played a gig one time, and this lady came up to him, and she was like, "Oh, I've got something to tell you," and he was like, "What the fuck's going on?" It's the only funny thing about it. And she's going, "Oh, I really apologise to Marie and make things up with Marie. I'm very, very frightened of her because I'm worried she's going to hurt me." And like, I can just see his face now, thinking, "What the fucking hell's going on here?" What had happened is during our relationship, he'd been seeing her. So
Well,
she lived in another town, and I'd sort of it's a bit of like it is when you go through abuse. It can get a bit patchy. We were talking about this the other night,
mhm.
but he was seeing her. I remember I had a feeling something was going on with somebody. He totally denied it. He was like, "I'm not seeing anyone. I'm not seeing this lady." But she'd obviously been told by him that, I'd found out and I was going to hurt her in some way, and that I was like this horrible, violent person.
And that might have been just to keep her quiet, so that she didn't tell anyone, like to put the fear into her that something would happen to her if she
Yeah.
told anyone, maybe.
And the thing is, what Lorik found interesting is that she said to Lorik that she like when she actually broke it off with him, but he kept harassing her and kept harassing her to the point that she was really frightened of him.
Yeah. Because generally they don't change the behaviours. Again, sometimes when I've worked with people and they end the abusive relationship and they see their partner move on, and they're looking from the outside going, well, maybe it was just me because I can't see abuse over there. Well, that's because what they're looking at is the grooming period at the beginning, the whirlwind romance, when everything, when they're trying to capture you. But the abuse always creeps back in because without intervention, they don't they don't change. They just take those behaviours into a new relationship. And sometimes even in that new relationship, they still keep harassing past partners as well, because they just can't let go.
It's such a hard subject, and it's been, I think we were talking about how you rehearse things as well in your head in case somebody challenges you, because it's almost like you're prepared to be challenged, aren't you, at any given moment. It's like, you know, it's, I mean, even Lorik's picked up on times where, you know, I've had guys, you know, give me like sideward glances, and it's like, I know that, you know, you know my ex, and even he's picked up on stuff. I still feel I feel like I still feel that's a potential threat to me. I really do, from this person, and I don't like it. I really don't like how that makes me feel. And does that ever go away?
It's interesting, isn't it? Because even if there's been no physical abuse, they still have this way of making themselves into this larger than life, very scary figure. That, like I say, even if they've never physically hurt you before, that you have this fear, this inbuilt fear of them. And it just stays even a long time after the abuse finishes or after you leave. You still have that fear of them. I guess it's the fear of what they might be capable of doing.
And it is hard to talk about. And with trauma, you block out bits. So at the very last time I went to the police, they said to me, I disclosed some stuff, and they said, oh, well, this isn't on some of your original statements. And I said, yeah, I said, I've been through therapy, and I've had, you know, healing time since, and, you know, that's, and they seemed to get that. They were quite good, actually, domestic abuse side of things, and police. I forgot what you call them. There's a special name, isn't there? The police who do domestic abuse. I can't remember.
The DASO. Is it DASO that you had? Domestic Abuse Support Officer?
Yeah, they came round, and it was, I mean, it was, yeah, it's, and there's a little part of you that feels like you're being interrogated as well. It's like, well, he really believes these things. I'm like, he might do, but, you know.
Yeah, it's we just need to start believing women, don't we? That's the bottom line of it. You know, not just talking about domestic abuse, but even looking at, you know, the stuff that's going on in the press at the moment with the Epstein files and, you know, all of that stuff. We just need to start being women. I heard something the other day which I thought was really interesting, which is that if you speak to women, we will all know somebody that's been abused, or know of somebody that's been abused or been sexually assaulted. You know, I don't know. In fact, most of the women I know have had some negative experience, and yet when you talk to men, none of them seem to know a man that's an abuser.
It's funny that all they'll come out with stuff like, oh, well, it happens to men too.
Yeah, and some of the stuff I've been looking at recently, which I found quite interesting. And I saw something on social media where this guy was saying, like, so there's 10 men in a room, and one tells the sexist joke, and 2 of them laugh because they genuinely think it's funny, and 3 of them laugh because they're just trying to be polite, and 4 of them don't say anything. I think that's 10. Anyway, you get the idea. And actually, what we need is the man that calls it out. The man that calls it out says it's not okay to do that. It's not okay to make that joke. And it's the same with the abusive behaviour. You'll get the people that will see it, like they did with you, and kind of not say anything. You'll get the people that might go, oh, are you okay? But we need the one that calls it out and goes, that's not right that you're doing that. And that's what we don't really see happening. And if it was that bad, she'd leave, right? That's what I hear all the time, yeah.
I think what shocks me a bit is women who had been through similar to what I'd been through actually defending him. There's one woman in particular, she was in refuge and she had restraining orders, but she's still taken my ex's side.
Yeah, it's so
weird. A part of me thinks it's because she feels guilty. She feels guilty because she didn't pick up on stuff, and she should know. She should, you know, if she's done the programs properly, she would know that it doesn't work like that. You know, a friend of mine called them out and said, look, you know, Marie's had, 2 years worth of restraining orders against this person, You know, this is whilst they were calling me a liar, and they went silent then. You know.
Yeah, yeah. But I mean, I said to you, I've just been delivering some training, and I've called it 6 of one and half a dozen of the other, because this is happening more and more now, where perpetrators are claiming to be the victim. And there's been some really high profile cases we know in the press, like the Johnny Depp Amber Heard case, where, you know, both are coming forward and people will believe the story that they want to believe, I guess. And sometimes the truth is so obvious. I saw a quote today that said, I can't remember it exactly, but it was something like, there's always a really simple, clear answer. It's just not necessarily the right answer. So people will believe what's presented to them and they won't question it. And actually, if you just start to question it a little bit, if you just are a little bit curious about actually what I'm being told and what I'm seeing, then generally there's another truth under there, and it's not that hard to find, I don't think. You know?
But I don't know if you've seen like some of the court cases, and even women who aren't high profile who I've seen, you know, call out abusive behaviour, and then they've been dragged through the courts for years.
Yeah.
It is a fine line, and it shouldn't be.
It shouldn't be. And I don't know if you saw the Giselle Pellico case in France, the woman whose husband was drugging her and having people come round and rape her.
Yeah, I've heard that.
And she allowed her name. She had the right to be anonymous, and she allowed her name because she said, it's not my shame, it's theirs. She's like my hero a little bit, I think. And we need to be a bit more about that, saying, actually, why should I have to hide? And we go quiet when they're saying all this stuff about us to other people because of what you've just been through and you're trying to recover. You just don't have, I don't think, the strength in you to go out and fight against all the lies, do you? So you just kind of, like you say, you hide yourself away and you let it happen around you, and you end up getting victimised twice.
And he knew that my son wasn't his, and he told his family that my son was his. And a friend knew what was happening. She's going, oh, you should tell his family. And I'm like, I can't, because me and my son are very vulnerable at the minute. I start making waves, somebody's going to get hurt, and it's going to be him. I mean, there was one point with my son, and this was probably a warning from him. I was feeding my son like I was bottle feeding him, and because I wasn't paying my ex enough attention, he took the bottle out of my son's mouth and threw it across the room.
Yeah.
And my son at that point just went straight to sleep. It's almost like he could pick up on the vibes.
Yeah, that's awful. And like I say, that's exactly what it is. It's new birth, pregnancy, and having a child under 18 months is a high risk factor in domestic abuse cases because of that partner jealousy. They hate it when you're spending, you know, time not giving time to them. When you're focused on something else, they don't like it. And that's when we see, children being abused and things happening to them as well. It's awful. And it's just so frightening, isn't it, for you as a new mum as well? And you're just trying to keep, you know, we spend a lot of time just trying to keep things safe for ourselves and our children in really, really difficult circumstances, and it's exhausting.
And it's true, and it's really difficult, especially when you're dealing with somebody that unpredictable, and and playing into that, you know, you wanting to have like a proper family and a home, as well. I was brought up,
and that was probably part of it. So part of that kind of claiming ownership was probably partly to draw you in. You know, I'll be this dad, and I'll be, you know, give you this lovely family life that you want, but also try to leave me, then I've now got some claim on this child.
Yeah, it was horrible. It was really horrible. And there was part of me was hoping that somebody would step up and do something, but no one did. Because I've been doing some counselling recently, just to do with like my background and stuff. And I blame my Catholic upbringing, because I had a Catholic upbringing, you see. So, you know, it's almost like, you know, you've got to be married and you can't have a baby out of wedlock and you've got to have all of this. And I guess, you know, that was used to control me and to, you know, what's the word? Ring fence me into a situation that wasn't good. It wasn't a good situation at all.
But everything they do, I think, does that to a certain extent. Like I say, the isolation, they will cut you off from people, and it like creates a dependency on them. The more people they cut you off from, the more reliant you are on them as like that only supportive person. And if you're a single mum and you've got a young baby as well, there's financial aspects. There's having someone around you, feel like you're giving family to your child, and again, I think there's a big pressure on women to keep the family together. And if you leave, then you feel like you're letting the kids down. You feel like you're letting everyone down. There's so much pressure there to kind of make it work, and because we've changed our behaviour to accommodate their behaviour, it somehow starts to feel like it's our fault what's happening, and we're the ones that have got to make it right.
Yeah. And he's very good at doing stuff like, oh, well, I've got the evidence. She sent me texts saying that she loved me. And it's like, I probably sent those texts to keep myself safe because I knew if I'd have ignored you, you would have hounded me until you got what you wanted. If I said no, it'd become a yes because you would not take no for an answer. It was just horrible. And it's taken me a long time to digest that type of that behaviour, because when you're going through it, as you know, it's just so unbelievable.
It is nice. I used to say to my clients sometimes, if I could lift you out of your life now, this was like at the point they were maybe coming to refuge and trying to end the relationship. I'm like, if I could lift you out now and drop you back to before you met this person, could you imagine yourself being where you are? And they're like, no, I'd be shocked. I'd be shocked, like, with what my life looks like now. But it's such a slow drip, drip, drip that you don't see it happening. And it's suddenly when you're in the middle of this absolute nightmare, you just can't really work out how you got there.
No, you can't. And then you've got this, and then you've got people going, oh, where's the proof that you're being abused? Where's the evidence? And where are your bruises and where are the scars? And it just becomes a very lonely place, and you've got to really believe, like, you've got to start believing in yourself in a way. You've got to find that little spark that's still there, and you've got to hold on to that. And I understand now. I remember somebody told me a story about a girl within the scene that he was in, and she'd been sexually assaulted by this guy, so they all beat him up. And then she came back, she said, oh no, it didn't happen, it was all a mistake. So she was ostracised. And I understand that situation, because a part of you wants to go, I was just having a moment. And it's like, I wish I had been having a moment. I'd honestly wish, which obviously he told everybody, I'd had some sort of nervous mental breakdown and I was making stuff up. I honestly wish I wish I'd have been sectioned for a few months and given medication to make myself better. Than I could have gone, oh yes, I'm so sorry, but sadly that's not the case.
And the psychological stuff, everyone I've ever worked with says it's worse almost, because the physical stuff you can quantify it and you can go, yeah, this is definitely abuse, someone's hitting me. But the psychological stuff, it's like brainwashing. When you're in it, it's like you're being brainwashed. And like I say, when you try to describe it, even some of the things you've talked about, oh, you have to have the phone number of everyone in the band. So what? That doesn't sound like abuse in itself, does it? But when you put it into the context of actually he was monitoring every move I made, he didn't want me to be with other people, he didn't want me to be in this band, he would, follow me everywhere he would do. When you start putting all these things together, you see how every aspect of your life is controlled. But when you start trying to explain it to somebody, if they don't understand coercive control, they don't get it.
No.
And of course, his story will be more believable because he'll have just made it up. All the stuff that he's saying about you, so it'll be, maybe more believable.
And there was a couple of, I'd say, physical things which I didn't. For me, it's like at the time it's like, I wasn't punched in the face, I wasn't, and there wasn't any marks, but there was a time I was supposed to meet one of my band members to go to a gig, but I ended up being locked in the house most of the day. And I managed to convince him to let me out. sounds fucking crazy. This is, it's just so, it sounds so mad, doesn't it? But it's true. I remember like sitting in the chair going, "You've got to let me out," and and just like
And
really,
what's crazy is the fact that you weren't probably sitting there going, "This is mad. Like, this is false imprisonment. He's literally kidnapped me." But we don't think it at the time. You're just kind of
no.
thinking, "How am I going to get him to let me out of the house?"
Yeah, that's all I was thinking. It's only in hindsight, it was like, yeah, that was, so he wouldn't let me out. And then when he did, he sort of grabbed me and pushed me out the door. And I must have hit my neighbour's door. Obviously, they didn't come out to help because not people don't. They don't want to get involved. And then I was like, shit, I'm outside. I'm outside the door. I was in a flat, so I was in like the landing bit. And I was like, I've got no shoes. I've not got my instrument. So I was like banging on the door, going like, I need like my shoes, I need my bag, I need my instrument. And he got my shoes. He opened the door, got my shoes, threw them full pelt in my face, and then threw my bag at me, and then locked the door. At this point, it's almost like I'd just forgotten about the instrument because like I had my bag and my keys, had my shoes. I drove all the way to where I was going, which was like, it was in the South Coast. And I got there, I was like, shit, I don't have my instrument. How am I going to play? I think luckily for me, somebody else in the band, as standard, brought 4 instruments with them because that's how they rolled. So I used their instrument. It wasn't like mine, but they used every tactic they could to stop me from playing in the band.
And what's really interesting, just listening to you talk then, is even after all this time, even now, it's abuse. And what you described, there was 2 assaults, not one. One where he pushed you out and you banged into the door and then throwing the shoes at you. And you still went, it's not like he punched me. It's not like he did this. It's not like I was bleeding. It's not like... And that's what we do. We minimise it. And it's an assault and it's still an assault. It's still abuse. And like I say, even when you get to the point where you recognise it and you know that, we still minimise it. And it's like a really common theme of being in an abusive relationship is that you learn to minimise the behaviour because that's what they do to us as well. Just, oh, you can't call it abuse. It's not like I've ever hit you. It's not like I've ever done this. And they'll downplay it or deny it or justify it in some way.
I think when I first went into refuge and when I was at the groups, I don't recall talking about anything physical. I don't think I'd accepted that side of things.
And I think when we were talking the other day, we said as well that when you experience trauma and in that moment, that would have, your automatic stress response would have set off, your kind of fight-flight response. And when that happens, the way your brain then stores the memories is a little bit different anyway. So these things end up getting stored like a drunken memory. Not suggesting you've ever been drunk, but like you might know someone that had, you just remember bits of it and you don't remember the order it happened in and it feels a bit blurry. It's because your brain is in survival mode in that moment. It's not thinking about storing long-term memories. So sometimes we don't even remember some of that stuff until later.
It's like when I went to the police to report an incident. I mean, it's when it really got really bad, and my people I was in a band with were like, Marie, you've got to report this to the police, because at this point, like me and my son just weren't even living in the flat. We were just living out of my car and staying anywhere we could.
Just because you were scared to go home.
Yeah, and one of the guys I was in the band with said you've got to go to the police. So I went to the police. I didn't even want to go in. I didn't even want to be in the same town. That's how worried I was. Because I thought if he knows I'm in town, he's going to come get me. What I did, I told him what had happened to me. There was an incident that had happened, and some other stuff. I can't remember it all. But they asked me for like the dates of things. I gave them the dates that came into my head, and I'm thinking I hope they're the right dates. But unfortunately, he was like, "Oh well, they're the wrong date she's given. On this date I was," and like I said to the police, "Look, I'm sorry, but I just couldn't get it together." Does that make sense, Jo?
Makes perfect sense. That's the stuff that we forget. You're not going to forget that you was assaulted, that you was kicked in the crotch, but actually you might forget the time it happened, the day it happened, what you were wearing, and they're all like the facts that the police try to boil down into. They are learning, and they are doing more like trauma informed interviews now. So rather than trying to go like start at the beginning, what happened at 7 o'clock, and then what happened next, they're kind of going like, what do you remember? And a lot of those memories will be around your senses, which is why we get triggered by sensory things sometimes. But it will be like, well, I remember I had a green jumper on, or I remember, that this song was playing in the background. Like, we remember certain bits, but yeah, you're not likely to remember the details of it. When that happens, it makes perfect sense.
And that's, I'm glad that's becoming more, like, more people becoming aware of that. Because when I was going through it, it had to be, well, it was very it had to be very, very factual and by the book, and not by the book, no, it wasn't by the book. Do you know what I mean? It was very...
Yeah, they want all the gritty details that you can't remember. Yeah.
And we've got science as well to prove that that's not how trauma works. You're in survival.
Yeah,
you're doing what you can to make sure that you're safe, and especially your child. You want your child to be safe. That was the catalyst for me, wanting my child to be safe.
I was going to ask what was the push. That's in most cases, I think, that I've worked, that's often the thing that goes, actually, now I can see my child's being affected by this, or I'm scared for them. That's going to be the thing that's going to get me to leave.
It makes me sad for myself that I didn't take care of myself as I should have done. And I was actually planning, I can't remember I don't know if I've talked about this anywhere other than counselling, but I was actually planning on taking my own life, because I thought, this man is never ever going to leave me alone. He's never going to leave me alone. What stopped me from making that decision is I was at work, and I became a bit ill at work, and it turned out I was pregnant. And when I found out that I was pregnant, I thought, I can't hurt myself because I can't hurt my child. Even though at that point I thought, I could lose this one because obviously like the miscarriage history and everything. But, he gave me the strength to, carry on and, try and work with the absolute god awful situation I was in until it was safe for me and him to, leave.
Yeah, it's really sad actually, because it's there's a bit more of a focus, I think, in the field now, a bit more of a recognition around suicide. We know now that more people are taking their own lives because of domestic abuse than are being murdered. So in 2024, there were 98 people who were identified as having taken their own lives because of domestic abuse, and there were 80 homicides. But there was some more recent research in Kent where they looked at suicides from 2018 to 2024 and found that in at least a third of those cases, the person had experienced domestic abuse. So we're looking at, if we take that and translate that nationally, we're looking at an annual figure of about 1,500 people taking their own lives because they're experiencing domestic abuse. Because it feels like you said, it's the only way I'm going to get out, because they're going to keep coming for me. They're never going to stop. So even if I leave, the abuse is still going to happen. And there's some campaigning going on now to try to make perpetrators culpable, to make it a criminal offence if someone takes their own life, because a lot of them will tell you to as well. In a lot of the cases, there's been evidence that the perpetrator is saying, go and kill yourself, do it. It's the ultimate control, isn't it? To get to make someone do that. So yeah, it's a really sad statistic, but the trauma as well, and the effect of the trauma, it just feels like there's no other way out sometimes. But there is, and you know that, and there is life afterwards. So that's, a message that people need to take away, that there are things that we can do. There are criminal justice responses. We are getting better at it, and there is always another option to get out.
I mean, when I was coming out, and I've been in refuge, and I come out of refuge, and I was sort of saying like anybody associated with my ex, you can. I was very blunt. I was like, well, you can fuck off. And then I got so much abuse, Joe. I was called a bully, and I was accused of all sorts of things by people that I'd been touring with, people who I thought were friends, people who had actually phoned when I was frightened and I needed their
Yeah.
support, and they were calling me all these names. I mean,
It's so sad, isn't it? And my only guess is like that he had probably laid it on thick about, how sad it was that he'd broken up and how awful it was for him and what a terrible person you were, and that people had just chosen to believe it, I guess. And then because we're sticking up for ourselves and going, actually, I'm done with this and I've had enough, and we're now being assertive and people aren't used to that.
yeah.
There's a bit of that, I guess, as well.
I've actually found that because I can really stick up for myself when I need to. Most of the time, I'm just quite. Somebody described me as placid, because I just But when I will stick up for myself, and I think people find that shocking, and it shouldn't
Yeah.
be such of a shock.
Well, being passive is just a safety mechanism, isn't it? Because you have to be passive when you're in that relationship. You have to back down and move your boundaries to accommodate them. And so we adopt this kind of, or we can adopt this quite passive demeanour. I notice that when people come into refuge, they kind of punctuate every sentence with the word sorry. Oh, I'm really sorry. Can I ask you this? I'm really sorry. Can I have this? And it's like, that's just what we've been conditioned about how we keep safe. So yeah, when you suddenly start being assertive and putting your needs first, I think that can be difficult for people.
Yeah, because they put you in a box of they expect you to be this person, and I guess as some well, it's not. I guess I know from therapy and counselling around my abuse that it's easier for people to believe you're the bad guy than this person who's presenting themselves in such a way could do such terrible things to you.
Yeah, yeah, I think so. I think so. And like I say, like they are extremely manipulative. Lying is their language, and they get better at it, and they learn how to do it, and they learn how to be quite convincing. And I think what I see a lot of is when we're trying to put across our side of the story, and when you're trying to, help people to understand, like we said earlier, because coercive control is quite insidious, it's hard to explain it. But also, you can almost be accused of like becoming hysterical, or we get labelled with those types of things. And it's not. It's just frustration that people aren't hearing you, or that
Yeah,
people aren't believing you, or that you can see. We see everything that this person's done, and no one else seems to be able to see it, and it's so frustrating. And the really sad thing is, like I said before, that we get re-victimised, and you do get bullied by people. It's almost, I've heard them referred to as winged monkeys, like the perpetrator will recruit their winged monkeys
yeah.
to, come after you.
I didn't have the knowledge that I know now. I didn't really know it was stalking. I didn't know that I was in an abusive relationship because there was no blood up the walls. I had no bruises and broken bones, so it couldn't have been abuse. It was just somebody who wouldn't take no for an answer, and I didn't quite know how to deal with it. And then when you ask people for advice, it's all oh well, he must love you because he's asleep on the doorstep and he's turning up at all these gigs, and he's contacting all your friends. And there's another one, he turned up at my family's house in Yorkshire at my nephew's football match, and afterwards he convinced all my family that I'd totally lost my mind. And then I turn up there a week later, and they were really shocked, and they were like, we were led to believe that you'd lost your mind and you were in hospital. I said, no.
Yeah.
I've
Yeah,
been,
they're just planting the seeds, aren't they? And yeah, making people just to invalidate you. So when you do start talking about the abuse, no one's going to believe you because you're crazy.
and you know what, that I remember at the time thinking I couldn't even imagine doing that. I've broken up with somebody, or, we're going through a divorce, and turning up at the family's house or a family gathering, and then like putting this like show on in a way. I just
But that's the
can't.
obsession. That's the obsessive bit, and that's the ownership thing. It's like you don't get to choose to leave this relationship, and if you try to leave the relationship, then this is going to be the consequences. Because that's what abuse is all about, isn't it? Is you have to follow this set of rules, and when you don't, there's consequences. And that's how they condition you to do what they want. So this is the same thing. You don't get to leave, and if you've chosen to leave, then there's going to be consequences. And some of that's going to be turning people that you care about against you.
And it's held me back in a way because I mean, as much as I liked being in the band I was in, I could have done a lot more, but I was a bit concerned about that because I thought nobody else will want to be in a band with me. Nobody else will want to work with me. When I was doing the podcast, I was like, oh no, they're gonna start. He's gonna start coming for me. I'm still expecting that, Joe. I'm still expecting, especially after this episode's aired. That he's gonna come after
me. And how many
me.
years? How many years has this been?
This has been, oh dear God, about 12.
We've known each other. I was going to say we've known each other for what, 12 years?
Yeah, 12 years.
Yeah. So that's what I mean. Even after all this time, it's amazing the power they have over you that you are still going to comply with some of the rules. Don't speak out against the abuse. Don't call it out because actually there'll still be potentially repercussions.
Yeah. And it was only...
And like I say, we have to speak out about it, I think. But it's just, it's just like I say, even like that just speaks of the obsession, doesn't it? That even after a decade, any opportunity to still try to get at you, to hurt you, to do something, that's the obsessive behaviour. Like they just can't, they can't let it go.
I think now he feels as though there's an injustice towards him. He won't take responsibility for anything. My guilt is starting a relationship or trying to start a relationship before being properly divorced.
But I think there's a lot of reasons we do that. Sometimes it's like to protect ourselves, or sometimes we go into a new relationship with the hope that this new person will keep us safe from the last person. Sometimes we do it because we're just so desperate to have someone show us some love or affection because we've been starved of it for such a long time. And I think sometimes it's just about sending a message almost to him to say, look, I've moved on. It's definitely over. Look, I'm moving on and I've started this new relationship. To ourselves as well, maybe to tell ourselves, this is definitely finished because now I'm moving forwards. So I think there's lots of reasons. And why shouldn't we be able to go into a new relationship? You shouldn't have to, you were separated, that's it.
Yeah,
what you did after that was none of his business.
I know, but then he obviously started getting in there and, know.
But if it hadn't been that, it'd have been something else. That's what he used as the thing to get at you. But if it hadn't been that, he'd have just found something else. And if he couldn't find anything else, he'd have made something up.
Yeah.
So, that doesn't change, unfortunately.
So what advice would you give, to somebody who has that in the background going forward? What?
I think there are lots of ways to get out. Definitely ask for help if you're looking to get out. It's the riskiest time. It's, where the reason we don't leave is because we're frightened, and we're right to be frightened. It's 75% of domestic homicides happen at the point of separation. So if you're looking to leave, then make sure you speak to a specialist service. And refuge isn't your only answer, because I hear what you're saying. Refuge can be great. I've seen women really supporting each other through refuge and making great friends in there, but it can also, it's going to be tough, isn't it, living in multi-occupation kind of setting, but it's not the only response. There's lots of things that we can do to help people to separate and move forward, and it does get easier and it does get better. And even though, like you said, with him, he's still lurking in the background, you do have a good relationship and a happy life, and there's definitely there's definitely a light at the end of the tunnel, 100%. What would your advice be?
Probably similar to yours. When I was going through my separation, and it took a long time as well, I didn't have the tools that I knew now. I don't think it was the information wasn't as out there as it is now. I feel like it's out there a bit more, but I don't know if it's because I've been engaging with those services a bit more.
Yeah, maybe. It's like on your radar a bit more, maybe.
Yeah, I really did not have a clue about coercive control. Never even heard of it. Never even heard of it until I was probably in refuge and I was talking to people, about, maybe just before refuge actually, and I was talking to somebody about it. I remember even like a couple of years before, I was saying to a friend, it's who I ended up, being separated from. I said to her, I said, it's like I'm being abused, but I've got no bruises. That's what it felt like, the relationship. And to break it off was very difficult because he wouldn't let that happen. He would find any way possible to, you know, stop me from, leaving, stop any sort of relationships that I would have that he didn't approve of. Even breaking off with him and starting any sort of relationship with somebody else,
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if I've gone. I don't know if it's answered that question, Joe. I sort of went into one there.
No, you have. You have. I think it is that. Like, I used to have something printed on one of our leaflets that said, if you think you're being abused, you probably are. Because what I see all the time and what I hear when people do, and I have people still come and talk to me about their relationships, and I'm like, if you're talking to me about your relationship, you know that you're being abused, because I'm not a marriage counsellor. I work in domestic violence, and so if you're asking me, you already know something's not right. And I see a lot of people on like survivors forums saying, this is happening to me, what do you guys think? And what they're looking for is validation. So yeah, that's my thing. If you think you're being abused, you probably are. And I'm going to speak to somebody about it. You can do it anonymously, and you can get help and advice, definitely. And I do hope that people's understanding of coercive control is increasing, because like you said, it's not physical abuse, but also it's not even about someone telling you what you can and can't do. It's more like you said, if I wanted to go out, then he would complain about it. He would want the phone numbers of everyone I was there. He'd come and give me a hard time. He didn't tell you couldn't go out. He just made it really difficult for you to go out, and that's coercive control. So that's why it's so insidious, because it's kind of like, I can't put my finger on. He hasn't said I can't do it. He hasn't said I can't do this, but I know I'm not being able to do what I used to be able to do. So yeah, it's difficult. Yeah. And for what it's worth, you should be really proud of yourself, because it's not easy to get out, and you did, and you've created a great life for yourself and your son.
I had another son as well, so I've got
and you have a son, yeah.
Son.
Both of your sons.
Which I didn't think I'd have. That was,
yeah. But things could have been really different if you'd stayed, so you should be really proud.
I dread to think, Joe. I don't even want to think about it. I think what I'm disappointed about is I didn't get the help and support from the people who I knew, who I'd known for a long time. I had to cut a lot of people out of my life, which I didn't want to. A lot of people have called me a lot of very nasty, horrible names, Joe. They've been horrible, and every now and again when their name pops up, I'm thinking, we used to go drinking together. We used to play music together, and the horrible things you've said, and I just.
And you think, surely you know me better. Surely, surely if you knew me, that you'd know that stuff about me isn't true, and that's what hurts, right?
It is, because you think, God, you must have hated me all along. You must have really hated my guts for you to just, And
that's like, I don't know that's the case. I just think, like I say, these abusive men just are very convincing. But that doesn't make it hurt any less.
No, it doesn't. And always, I need to see the proof. I've got evidence that, and I just feel like, he tried to get me done for perverting a course of justice, Joe.
No, I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah, this was... I can't remember, when was it, before refuge, during refuge, it all, as you can tell with the trauma, it all sort of becomes it's like some mad whirlwind of stuff, and this is where they get you on as well. You can't be exact, so she's got to be making it up because it's not all exact. The police contacted me and they said, we can either arrest you or you can come in willingly. And I had to find a solicitor, But every solicitor, legal aid solicitor I tried to contact in the area, he'd contacted every single one of them. So I had
So then there was a conflict of interest because they couldn't,
yeah,
you couldn't use them because he'd contacted them.
yeah, and I don't know where, I don't know if you got this list from Citizens Advice Bureau or we'd actually found a list that I'd got from you guys, because obviously you don't just go into refuge straight away. It takes a long time, and it takes planning, and it's like precision,
Yeah.
and you got to plan your moments. So you may have found paperwork I had. So all these solicitors I couldn't work with, so I had to go through the phone book then. That was fun. The
Yeah.
phone book. That's how long ago it was.
What was the accusation?
That I'd
Okay,
made
you
it
called
all
the
up.
justice how?
That
Oh, just that you'd made a false report.
I made a false report, and then I went to the police station. And when I told them that I'd been in contact with the domestic abuse unit, and
Yeah.
this unit they'd been around my house because I've got restraining orders in place. Yeah, because this was after the restraining orders. He had to leave the house because me and my son couldn't even access our home, and the police came round and they had to crowbar the door open to get him to leave. Yeah, it was. So he tried to
And that
make it.
shouldn't have even been a question. Like, they shouldn't have even come and questioned you about that, because there was already evidence that there was domestic abuse and it was clearly a false allegation. And like I said, I'm doing these training courses at the moment about false allegations, because I'm talking about the way that perpetrators will use organisations and institutions to further abuse you when you've taken their control away by leaving the relationship. They'll use the kids, they'll use the police, they'll use social services, and all these other, and friends and family, to continue to abuse you. And we need to get a bit more savvy about that, I think.
So Dipsy went to Joe, as you said, like using organisations to support their campaign. Like,
Yeah.
because the date I got wrong, they got I managed to track down CCTV footage of me driving down the road on this date, going, oh well, that
Yeah.
didn't happen because, and the police are like, how did you talk them into doing that? Because like a
Yeah.
friend of mine, and he got the police onto them to try and testify against me, and he was like, fuck off.
Yeah.
Thankfully,
Yeah.
so I did have some friends, I still have some friends, and my friend was like, when my van was robbed, and because I had all his tools taken and everything, the police didn't want to know, and I had like DNA because I'd left a bloody foot fingerprint. I had like video cameras in my van, but yet for this, her hounding you and the harassing me, and even
Yeah.
my own mother, he got the police to harass my mum to try and give a statement saying that, and she couldn't understand what the hell was happening. She was like, why is he getting the police onto me? Why do I need to come and make a statement? And this solicitor that I found one in the end, and she was like, I can't. She was just like, you just don't say anything, just be no comment. And I'm sitting there in this interview going, I can't believe this is happening. It's like something
That's something
from,
off the telly.
yeah, it's like I don't know, Emmerdale Farm or something or whatever. It's just crazy. But I did say one thing, and I was a bit against solicitors' advice, but I stated quite clearly that it was a domestic abuse case. I said this has been to court, and their faces just looked really blank. He hadn't disclosed this, and I said, look, you need to go and speak to domestic violence unit,
Yeah.
because this is domestic abuse. And you could see they hadn't heard that side of things. They'd just gone
Yeah.
by me perverting the course of justice. And he goes around saying that I perverted the course of justice and I wasn't prosecuted due to lack of evidence. It's like I've got 2 years worth of restraining orders, Joe. I had to go
Yeah.
to court 3 times. It's
Mad.
like,
It's absolutely mad, isn't it, that they get away with it, and that they get people to believe that rubbish. And now he's using that as a thing. And I saw it. I worked alongside frontline police on and off for quite a long time, and I've seen them arrest people who are clearly the victim of abuse, because sometimes they've fought back. So when they get there, maybe the perpetrator's got an injury, or just when they get there, the perpetrator's shouting louder, and and normally the victim's in shock, and you get them into custody, and it's quite clear that they're a victim of abuse. But that's what they do. That's, and it teaches you a lesson, doesn't it? Like if you ring the police and the police turn up and arrest you, that teaches you not to ring the police again.
Yeah, it does.
What he was teaching you was, don't report me, because if you report me, I'm going to do a counter allegation, and then you're going to get arrested.
And you know what, as well, I learned, and I think I said before, if you're going through it, the moment you fight back, you argue back, they'll use anything against you, anything that can, and I've been quite a reactive person in the past, so if I've been pushed, I'll push back, or, if somebody shouted at me, I'll shout back, and, anything that I would do or say to defend myself would be used against me. Oh, she is this person. Oh, she told me to fuck off, so she is like that, and I'm just defending.
And then they go, well, why didn't you ever report it?
Yeah, I know.
And you're like, well, there you go, that's why, because of the repercussions.
And even now, I'm scared of the repercussions. Like, I get people going, oh, why can't you mention his name? It's like Voldemort or something. I just don't want him turning up, Joe. I just don't.
We refer to it as like you don't want to kick the hornet's nest. You learn to set a safety plan and do things to keep yourself safe, and part of that is keeping quiet. Don't disclose the abuse, because otherwise you'll be punished for it. And it's like what happened in the Amber Heard case. She spoke out, and look what happened to her. Not only did he come for her, but the public came for her. And it's a clear message that you don't speak out. And that needs to stop, definitely. And more women need to talk about this.
But the other side of it is obviously the court cases, as you've just said, but also like they can out you inverted commas. Like I had it done to me a lot as a child. I mean, that's a podcast for another day, where I would be silenced because if you spoke up, then we'll just tell everybody that you're a liar and you're this and you're the other. And it's like I knew this was happening to me, but I think there was a comfort as well. It's like it was a situation that I recognised.
And the thing is, you just spend, especially if you've learned it in childhood, you just learn to do what you can to keep the peace. It's how we safety plan. So you just learn to do whatever you need to do to not make things worse, to just try and keep it, on an even keel. So that's why we say don't kick the hornet's nest, because if things have gone quiet, you don't want to do anything that's going to upset that. And it's that fear of, if I do anything, it's going to start it all again, isn't it?
Yeah. But I do sort of, I do think they out themselves in the end. But it just means that, sadly, people have to go to the pits of hell and back.
Yeah, no, it is sad, and but I think, like I say, we need to speak out about it and to be less fearful, because otherwise we're just colluding. I think it's a Desmond Tutu quote where he says, if you stay silent in the face of oppression or in the face of injustice, you choose the side of the oppressor. So when this stuff happens and people don't speak out, they're colluding, aren't they?
Even if somebody who was a friend of mine didn't want to openly go, yes, Marie, I'm with you, and give it large in public, even if they sent me a private message and gone, Marie, I see it, I'm with you, that would have been just as good. You don't always have to give it
so much.
You don't have to give it large.
Well, do you know what? Even if someone, rather than just taking what they're told on face value, if someone just comes to you and says, I'm being told this stuff and it doesn't sound quite right to me, do you want to tell me what's going on from your point of view? It's just when people believe it blindly without questioning it, I think that's the really hurtful stuff, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Because then you put it back on yourself. You're like, God, I must be a complete arsehole. I must come across the right twat if they think that of me,
And you're definitely not. I've known you a long time.
Although I'm no angel, Joe.
I wouldn't have been friends with you for this long if you was a complete arsehole.
I can be a bit of... I mean, can't we all? Nobody's innocent. We all have our moments where we've got to step
Yeah, we
back and go,
do.
I'm sorry, I was a bit of a twat there. But it's called taking the responsibility in it, and I think that's the difference, isn't it? When somebody's abusive, they won't take responsibility, they won't step
No.
back, and
And it's interesting because one of the questions I got asked a lot is, do they know they're doing it? Because some of them do believe that they are victims, and some of them, do kind of go, "Oh, this terrible thing happened to me," and I think they believe it. But for me, the answer is in the fact that they lie about it. So the stuff he was saying about you, he knows that wasn't true, and he knows that's a lie. So the fact they lie about it tells me that they do know. They know that it's not okay what they're doing, and that they shouldn't be doing it.
and we just wonder when it'll change.
Yeah, yeah. Well, the homicides have gone down this year slightly for the first time in I don't know how long. Domestic homicides. So, there's always you've always got to look on the bright side.
Yeah, you do, but how much have they gone down, Joe?
Not enough.
Yeah, definitely not enough.
Yeah,
You always get
yeah.
somebody
And
going, oh, what about the the men,
yeah,
and what about the homicide against the men,
yeah. But 93% of violent crime is committed by men, and I think you have to look at that and go, if 93% of violent crime is committed by women, all we'd be going is, what on earth's going on with women? But because it's men, we don't ask.
Yeah.
We don't ask. And domestic abuse is massively gendered towards women. It's far more women experience it. It's far worse. Women are, men are actually more likely to be murdered in the UK, but not by a partner, intimate partner. In fact, men are murdered by men. So normally acquaintances or strangers. Women are most likely to be murdered by the person that they're in a relationship with.
No, Joe, thank you so much again for this. I just hope that this helps people. I hope that it raises awareness. And I know it sounds really selfish, but sort of gives me a bit of peace as well.
I'll share it on my social media when you put it out.
They'll be like, Joe's become a punk.
I know. And then you're like, and there's one childhood, that'd be for another day. And I'm like, oh, I also do lots of training around childhood trauma. And I'm like, we'll totally take over this podcast and it won't be about punk music anymore. Trauma, domestic abuse.
But you've got the link there through me as well, So out and about doing what I do, doing this podcast, if it wasn't like for yourself,
Yeah,
you've
yeah.
helped give me the knowledge and the strength and the support to grow and to do these
I
things.
always tell people you did that yourself, and you did do that yourself, but it's still a pleasure to be part of that journey with you and see how far you've come. It's amazing.
No, thanks, Joe.
That's what I love about my job, when I get to see people like you at the end and go, yeah, it's nice to see people come out the other side. Anyway, lovely to speak to you. We'll definitely catch up for that coffee soon, though, yeah?
Oh, definitely.
An in-person coffee, yeah.
Oh, no, I'd really like that, Joe.
Yeah. All right, I'll talk to you soon.
See you soon. Bye.
Right, bye.
Thank you for listening to Punk Rock Creatives Podcast, and we'll see you next time. Bye.